What's going on, Blerds, nerds, and everybody in between? It's your boy Wyatt, the sensei of the syndicate. And today we are talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. So there are people that love the movie. There are people that surprisingly don't like the movie at all. So we're going to get a whole lot of input and actually be able to talk to a couple people and get their input on this one. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring some people in. He is, if Jeremy's my right-hand man, he's my number three. That's why I'll put him like that. So without further ado, Jeremy, how you doing today, man?
Yeah, Jeremy is your right-hand man, and then you got Jeremy as your left-hand.
I've got two Jeremys, two great Jeremys. That's what I can say, man. So yeah, man. It's me and you, and we're gonna have a couple guests come on, talk about how we liked the movie or what we didn't like. So I want to hear your opinion first because you have some strong opinions on the Spider-Man movie. But I want you to because I know that this is going to be kind of crazy. I want some people to be able to talk to you, kind of express your cred for us.
Okay. First, there was a little bit of a journey for me to be able to watch this movie because I didn't go see it when it was in theaters. I waited the full 3 months, and I got to admit, a lot of it was ruined for me. A lot of it was spoiled. You can't hop on social media without somebody talking about, a spoiler of this movie, posting a GIF, etc. So I got to give it that. But talking about my nerd cred, as I, kind of tear this movie up a little bit, I do need people to know this is me, this is me, this is me, this is me. Nobody loves Spider-Man as much as me. You got Venomized Sailor Moon, Mysterio, and I'm gonna come after Daredevil a little bit too. So I need you to know nobody loves Daredevil as much as me. And come back to this one. I'm the biggest fan in the world. You got this guy here and this guy. That's what I do. I love these guys. That's my thing. That's one of my things. And so to actually see the movie, man, it was a letdown for me. It was a huge letdown. And I mean, I can go kind of point by point, but I think what happened is they had a good concept and then they executed it in the weakest way that I've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, honestly, lower than Iron Man 2. Totally worst.
Those are strong opinions. So why do you like? So give me a breakdown of what really bothered you, because I want to kind of go through it and kind of see what you got, man.
Okay, so number one, this would not have happened this way. And I mean, you give it, I'll give you Thanos, I'll give you all the cosmic, playfulness that the MCU regularly allows for. Well, spoilers. Can I spoil? I got to spoil.
I mean, yeah, you're fine now. It's
been 3 months.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
All right. Doctor Strange would not have done this at all. That's some hot garbage. If Doctor Strange did it, there are way easier ways to do it, right? I mean, why forget Peter Parker? Why not forget Mysterio, right? If Spider-Man didn't script the spell, he could have just went and talked to anybody else about it. There's so many flaws with the execution of this thing. And so it ultimately ended up feeling pretty cheap because it was just kind of a ploy to get all these guys in this room together. Get the Sinister Five in a room together, and then get the Spider Team in a room together. It didn't end up feeling like it was a well-crafted story. And that left me feeling really cheap about
it. See, I have to give, I always try to give everybody dramatic licensing and things like that, where I know that they're going to, first of all, dumb down a story so that no matter who watches it, no matter if you've seen the movie or seen, any or all of the MCU movies, I feel like they try to make it so that anybody can just follow along with it. So I think sometimes they try not to make it more sophisticated, and that's one of my problems that I have with the movies as far as that's concerned is because, well, I did like Spider-Man. Like it gave me my nostalgia and things like that.
Hmm.
But I just felt like you always got to give them a little bit of room to breathe and to do their own thing and just take it for the fact that I got to see all three Spider-Men. That's what
Yeah.
I went in there for.
I think that was the point of the movie.
Hmm.
I think the point of the movie was let's put all these dudes together and then let's put the Sinister Five together. So enjoying that, if you're there to enjoy that thing,
Hmm.
I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah. So so what about the villains? How did you feel about them?
Individually, each of those guys is really rad, right?
Mhm.
Then you put them all together for this movie, and all of a sudden, they feel kind of cheap, right? Sandman, like I heard, he wasn't even on set the entire movie, right? He didn't even physically interact with these guys, and you know what? You could kind of tell. It just felt like he was there. Um, Electro stand out for me. Electro was definitely the standout for me in terms of performance. I feel like Jamie Foxx got to actually do anything.
Yeah.
Where last time I guess he was acting more, but not in a way that was good. No,
I
he
think
didn't do something wrong. It was just what he was given.
yep.
Um, so I liked him this time. I feel like that was if you're going to hire Jamie Foxx, this is what you hire him to do. And let him kind of glow a little bit. Alfred Molina was rad. Willem Dafoe was rad. But when you put them all together, it didn't really feel like any of them got to do enough for me. Do you disagree with that?
Well, I mean, there's only so much time that you can have. So, like, I
Hmm.
know that everybody has to get in and get out, kind of where they are, and kind of get in where they fit in. So,
Hmm.
so that's where I kind of took it as like, oh, okay, well, we got to do what we got to do in that situation. So, of course, I would love to have seen more of the Jamie Foxx. Honestly, was great. William Defoe, like everybody that you mentioned, minus the Sandman. You know what I mean? Because like he literally was there just to be like, oh, I'm here. And like you
Yeah.
said, I think he only had that one time where he was
Yep.
coming out of the what was it? Coming out of the Statue of Liberty, and that was about
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. And here I have a daughter.
mhm. Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
daughter. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I have. So,
That's literally like his justification for anything he did. He said that like three times, maybe twice.
mhm. So I just I thought it wasn't a bad movie. I didn't I just I thought that it's everything since especially everything after Endgame. I think is just it doesn't have the same feeling that it did when you were watching all the rest of those movies pre that. But
Hmm.
it's I enjoyed it. It was one of the best ones from there though. So did you because I know you didn't like Shang-Chi either. So which one did you not like the most?
Which one did I not like the most? This or Shang-Chi?
Yes.
This,
Okay.
for sure. Worst. Worst of the worst. Like,
All right. Well, here's what we're gonna do because, of course, we got somebody on here, and I want to hear his opinion. He's been real active within our live sessions as of late, so I wanted to get the man, the myth, the legend himself on here. Tom, how you doing, man?
I don't feel legendary. I don't feel mythical. So I feel ordinary.
Just regular? Come on, man! You got to be awesome.
hey
So,
guys at
Yeah.
home, as we start to have this conversation, feel free to weigh in.
yeah,
When
of
you
course.
comment, we'll see it and we can share your comments. We can talk about your comments. You can have a conversation with us. So if you're watching at home, if you're popping on just to check it out for a second, give us your opinion. Did you like Spider-Man No Way Home? Right? Did you like it or did it suck? Which is what I think. So just let us know. All right. Sorry, Tom. Didn't mean to cut you off.
Tom, how did you feel about the movie, man?
Okay. So before I say anything, we need to establish that when it comes to the MCU and the DCEU, I think that's how they're calling it, is that you kind of like, granted, they're taking source material, they're
Mhm.
abridging it, they're editing it, they're trying to create a cohesive universe that's outside of the normal comic reader.
Mhm.
Now, granted, they are going to be following specific storylines, so on and so forth. And that took me a while to get used to when the first couple of Marvel films came out.
Mhm.
And the reason I'm saying that is that there were several things within the first couple of Marvel films that I felt like, that doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem right. And then it took me a while to figure out they're creating their own universe. So we have to establish this, and we have to work within these parameters. I do agree with Jeremy. Doctor Strange would not be doing that for Peter. But
In Infinity War, he was ready to let everybody die.
calm down. But MCU Strange, who has been breaking the rules since the very beginning, did. So we have to keep that in mind. Those are two completely different people.
MCU Doctor Strange in Infinity War was ready to let everybody die to protect the Time Stone. This guy was ready to let everybody die so so Peter Parker could get into college. Different guy.
No. He was breaking rules regardless, because he, as a doctor, was breaking the Hippocratic Oath, which is to do no harm. What did he do? He allowed a homicidal maniac from another universe destroy half of known existence. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, he's still breaking the rules. He is still within the parameters of the MCU Strange.
You're right. I'll give it to you. So he was going to let a homicidal maniac destroy half of existence, and then that didn't happen. So now he's got to do it to get Peter Parker into college. That's my biggest problem with the movie.
Well, actually, no. It technically was not Strange's fault. It was Peter who kept changing the rules. So if you could notice, Strange had to keep on recasting the same spell because Peter would not stop interrupting him.
Yeah, I'll give it to you there.
And that's the only reason why the entire film even existed, why you have all these breaks within the multiverse within that film, and why you had two other Peter Parkers coming in. We have several other different villains coming in. Now, I will agree. I feel like Sandman was underutilized. He was just in and out. So I will agree with that. But at the same time, we also have to keep in mind that you have 4 or 5 villains who are under lock and key.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, of course, they all haven't worked with each other. So this is their first time ever seeing each other. So, of course, it's going to be a little discombobulated between these characters. And I think that played off well. But I think the film as a whole was a film basically for the fans. Like, they wanted a better version of Spider-Man 3. They wanted a better version of ASM 2. And they got that with No Way Home. So in some ways, they did kind of get a happy ending that could not have existed because of whatever situations that Sony was dealing with back when those films were coming out. And I'm kind of glad that it was only the Tom Hardy Venom and not the whatever Venom we got for Spider-Man 3.
Hard disagree.
Well, Brian actually agrees with Tom.
Hey, everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah. Now, I will say this.
Tom Hardy Venom is better. Is that what you just said?
Yes, I think that whole thing of Venom, even though it wasn't anywhere close to comic Venom, it was a lot better than Spider-Man 3 Venom.
I rewatched the movies recently too. Topher Grace's Venom was sinister. Topher Grace's Venom had more energy. Tom Hardy's Venom, why was he in that movie? Also, so all these dudes are getting killed. I distinctly remember in Spider-Man 3, Tobey Maguire's, Spider-Man 3, Venom died. So where's he?
Well, he's part of the ASM.
Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't bring back everybody as well. So, I mean, I understood. And that was one of the things that they were saying was not all of them were coming through. And, these were the ones that slipped into this universe. So that was what made it, because, I mean, if that was the case, then, Gwen Stacy would have probably been in there. You know what I mean? It would have had who was it? I would James Franco would have been coming back in there. And
Where's that movie? I want that movie.
And thinking about James Franco, how mad would you be at his butler if you knew that I'm devoting my life to beating the hell out of my best friend and you decide not to say anything until I get half my face blown off? I would be extremely upset about how like this is the time that you tell me after I have just like ground beef for the left side of my face. He would have definitely gotten fired. Definitely got fired.
Yeah.
I think it was more well done than it was ground beef, but yeah.
Touche.
Yeah. But as far as the movies that we've been getting for Phase 4, I don't feel like it was the weakest of the group. I actually feel like the Black Widow film was the weakest of the group because it was out of the timeline that was given. Now, I would have enjoyed it more if, as far as the whole Taskmaster situation, if they were creating or grooming people to become all these different Taskmasters, but you still had the one Taskmaster.
Mm-hmm.
So in some ways, you kind of had like another possible big baddie just kind of looming around in the, I guess, Avengers, sort of camp, and not so much with the other characters.
Were you mad that it wasn't comic accurate?
To a degree, like I like the design, but when it was revealed that it was what's her face that was turned into the Taskmaster, I kind of felt like it had fell short with the whole trying to introduce one of the baddest villains that the Avengers have to tackle with time and time again. So it would have been different if the whole Taskmaster program was in charge with an actual Taskmaster, but they were grooming / creating other people to become Taskmasters. So there would be multiple versions. So it's kind of like the whole Hydra thing, cut one down, there's going to be two more appearing. So it's almost like an army in and of itself.
Brian, what do you mean by that? The Gwen Stacy of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man is Silk.
I don't know.
I don't know either. But I feel like Black Widow, as of right now, is the weakest link of all of these so far. I actually enjoy Shang-Chi. I don't know much about the character other than he's appeared a couple of times in, big event stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoyed the film for what it was. It was definitely fun. It was a nice blockbuster type film. Eternals was great. It did answer a couple questions, but at the same time, I also felt like it kind of pandered here and there. And what I mean by pandering here and there, I just mean that there were a couple of plot points that just didn't feel like it lined up with the rest of the MCU that we have already been watching.
Mm-hmm. But Eternals sucked though. So,
but as far as just the last part is, I think it was a really good segue with that end credit scene with the Black Knight, and we're hearing Blade's voice in the background.
Why does everybody like that stuff? Like, why was Daredevil in No Way Home? Why? Like, that just feels to me like
because Kingpin. Okay, so the Netflix shows were technically supposed to be canon with the rest of the MCU stuff leading up to Infinity War. So these characters were supposed to be in there. So it is established that Kingpin does exist within the MCU as it's supposed to be. Daredevil exists within the MCU as it's supposed to be. And now that Disney Plus has these characters, we can now assume and establish Jessica Jones is here, Iron Fist is here, Power Man is here.
But we could have done that without stepping on those other stories. So, like, I love Daredevil, love him to death. He's one of my absolute favorites. But, like, why throw him in there just to throw him in there? Like, I get that he was Spider-Man's lawyer. This is, like, kind of fun, but you didn't spend time with him enough to let it be part of the story. He was there for, like, just long enough to catch a break, and then nobody's like, hey, that's really weird. Because at
the same time they were releasing this, they had already released the Hawkeye show, which however has the Kingpin as
Thank you,
Your
Brian.
head honcho in the background. That's why they're establishing these things, and that's why they were
But he
buying.
can exist without Daredevil being in Spider-Man. That's so I want them in there. I want them to do their stuff. I want them to be part of it. But you've got to the point where there's like this cameo culture in the MCU that is just fan service and is disservice, in my opinion. Because okay, so a really great example, Eternals, which sucked. We can get into that more if we want. Eternals, you introduce Black Knight, and he was part of the movie. Was he good in the movie? Was it important to me? No, but he was part of the actual movie. And then at the end, it wasn't even like a Nick Fury moment. Blade was just there to tease that Blade exists, as opposed to Blade being there to give you any kind of actual Blade moment. You know?
Yes,
Why
but it has been.
Brian
it has
is
been
on your
confirmed.
side.
Thank you,
It has
Brian.
been confirmed that Blade is going to be, as far as the MCU again. It has been confirmed that he is, if not getting his own TV show, then he definitely is getting a movie again.
But just give me his movie. Just give me his TV show. I love Blade. Blade is rad. I went to see all the Blade movies in the theater. Give me his movie. Give me his TV show. Don't.
But this is going back to the whole thing in terms of what I was talking about before. This movie was practically for the fans.
Yes, Brian. I think you might be right now. Tell your friends.
But we appreciate you.
On Facebook. Yeah, we're happy to have you here. Most people are going to end up watching this one after the fact. Tell your friends. Bring them on.
Wesley Snipes. Yeah. No, they Marhash. How do you say his name?
Mahershala Ali.
Yeah. So he's going to be in there. So, but here's what I think about some of the cameos that go on. So, because of the fact that for a whole long time period there wasn't any there was a difference between the two, TV world and movie world and things like that. They wanted to let them know that, hey, we're blending, we're doing the same things, and we have these people, and you never know who may be in one of our movies, and I think that's why they brought him in there as far as that's concerned. So I get that he didn't really have a big part at all, you know what I mean, just to be there to say that, because it was a big thing when, spoiler, when Hawkeye in the Hawkeye series, when we saw Wilson Fisk, we saw Kingpin in there, you know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's really exciting to see, those blending of brands where it came from Netflix to Disney Plus.
Let's talk about that. Let's stay on that point for just a second. No, just that point for just a second. Just one second there.
Seconds up. So
okay. Kingpin was part of the Hawkeye show. Kingpin was an integral part of the actual story. He was a story driver. He was part of the ambience of the show. He was part of what made the show good. I mean, good.
He wasn't into the last two episodes.
No. He was in the whole thing. He was just a presence. He was driving Echo. He was, the boss of Echo's dad. He was Echo's boss the whole time.
But he physically didn't show up until the last two episodes.
Yeah, so he didn't show up until the last two episodes, and his name technically wasn't dropped until about the third episode in. But the thing is that you got to think about it in terms of, you got to think about the relationship between Pete and Matt Murdock, which is a very comic accurate thing within the two. And so the fact of we're showing Matt Murdock as Pete's lawyer within this whole situation is coming to realize that, oh, hey, well, this also kind of alludes to something that is technically comic accurate. Pete has always asked Matt Murdock for legal advice throughout the comics. So this is just the possibility of it being there.
Right on. Super happy with it. Just make it part of the story. Give me more of him if you're going to throw him in there. Make him someone who drives the story or the story rests on in any way, shape, or form. Which leads,
if that's the case,
along with the movie, there's too many of those guys.
If
There's
that's
just
the case, then there was no point for Adam Warlock ever being shown in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, or Howard the Duck, or the
no,
Sputnik.
there wasn't. There was 0 point. Zero, none.
But
Adam Warlock
it's
was just a tease that there was going to be a Guardians of the Galaxy 3. That's it.
but the reason why is for fan service. So we all know that as far as that's concerned, you want to have a little nod to the people who actually know the characters and have followed along in other aspects and other mediums of Marvel. So we want to make sure that, okay, because you've watched Daredevil, this is a little nod to you that says, hey, now that's something that somebody else can be able to get into. And plus it's a marketing ploy, man. So then after that, if you haven't seen it, and especially since they knew that they were going to get those shows back, because at the same time that Matt Murdock showed up in in the movie was the same time that oh yeah, so
He's talking about me. He's talking about me. Brian, you're working on being my friend. I'm excited to have you giving me some support. Thank you.
yeah. So as far as that's concerned, I think it was right around the same time that Hawkeye was coming out. It's the same time that the Spider-Man movie was coming out. So then that was really, really cool to see him in a Marvel movie. Because then after that, you have that new possibility that, hey, you never know, he may actually be in a new Marvel movie, or maybe they may give him his own movie. So it opened up those possibilities, and that's what I think they do with those kind of services.
Now
I'll give you that.
they started the whole trying to link in the TV shows with the movies with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because when you watch the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show at the very beginning, it was supposed to line up everything exactly with it. On top of that, the Netflix shows, because those characters, same time period, revolving in that same zone, they were all supposed to working together. People kept dropping the ball through various channels, and that's why it broke away from the rest of the MCU thing. Within, I think it was like season 3 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they decided to go off and do its own thing. At the same time, they just couldn't even fan the possibility of using the Defenders within the Infinity War thing. They just felt like, oh, we just have too much. We don't know what to do, so we're just going to throw it away.
S.H.I.E.L.D. is a perfect example of why you don't do this, because S.H.I.E.L.D. was good in a way when they were doing their own thing, and terrible when it was like, oh yeah, here's Sif. Like when S.H.I.E.L.D. had its own thing. This is great. This is a good point. When S.H.I.E.L.D. had its own thing with Ghost Rider, it was effing great. When Ghost Rider showed up and it's like, oh yeah, Ghost Rider's here, it was amazing. But they gave me like Ghost Rider in a real way that legitimately helped me appreciate the show, and like, it was really part of it. And then at the end, again, spoiler, but like how many years now, when Coulson was Ghost Rider for a minute, like that was the kind of like twist that I actually care about. But then instead, if it was like, oh yeah, here's Daredevil instead of Coulson as Ghost Rider, it's like Daredevil's just here now for a second.
I think it all has to do with how the writing is done. So like, because by that point, like when Ghost Rider was there, they had broken off and stopped doing it. So I think the last thing with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where they really had to make a pivot was when it was right when Captain America and the Winter Soldier came out, and then they were like, well, who's actually Hydra? There may have to be someone in there. And that was like a really good twist for me. I enjoyed it. But I think it was maybe a season after that. That's when because when Ultron took over, that's when they stopped following the story and started to do their own thing. So I think that they do a little bit of everything to try to make sure that that fan service is still there, because if not, then you're just having a drama within an MCU or within a DCEU.
Now, I think the other thing that I was also trying to interject was the fact of it, even though No Way Home and Hawkeye were released at the same time, it was technically somewhat confirmed that there was going to be, once Disney had bought back Daredevil, and they were trying to get all the others, but the first one was Daredevil. And so they were trying to get that back so they could do another season of Daredevil.
Mhm.
So technically, even though, yes, he was kind of blipped in for the 5 minutes that he was there on film, it still doesn't mean that we're not also getting more Daredevil coming in.
Yeah, they just wanted to remind you that hey, we have Daredevil, or at least we have the rights to be able to do that. So they want people to get excited about not only Spider-Man, the movie that you're going to see, but hey, go buy Disney Plus, and that way we can be able to make more money off of you.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you guys that. I'll give you guys all that. It is a great marketing ploy. Let's talk about the other glorified cameos in it, the Spider-Man. Like, do you feel like those guys drove the story, or do you feel like they were the kind of, I always say this wrong, Deus Ex Machina, where it was like, oh yeah, here's the thing that's going to solve the problem for me, when like, oh, there's so many things like that. How much do you guys feel like those actually contributed to the story outside of your nostalgia?
Well, go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to simply say there was one cameo that was very, very disappointed that they did not put in, and that was Aziz, the pizza guy. That was the one cameo I wanted to see. That's it. And it disappointed.
See, I was on your side until you said that one. I was on your side until you said that.
Oh, that was a total troll moment. I'm sorry.
So here's what I think. I think that there were a lot of different things that were left over, and I think honestly they were grasping at straws just so that they could be able to see if they have an opportunity, because Into the Spider-Verse did amazing. You know what I mean? Spider-Man, which is pretty much run by Marvel, is doing amazing. They're like, well, let's keep this train going and see how much of the Spider-Verse we can really milk. So, so of course they were trying to see who resonated with the fans, and who they would want to really invest in making another movie for. So
I think you nailed it.
But now I do think that it's it's nice to have that, because 5 against 1, 6 against 1, you know what I mean? You're going to need some kind of help, you know what I mean? So and Spider-Man and his amazing friends that don't have any powers weren't going to really cut it in that situation. And so that's where I felt like they were trying to do something, and I think it played off very well, just because well, short of the fact that like the trailer ruined it, where that one in like I think it was like Argentina, where it showed like the lizard getting punched even though there was no one there. I think that shows like, but there was a lot of surprise to that one, and maybe it was just me because I tried to stay away from spoilers, especially for those Marvel movies, because Marvel movies do the worst job of hiding the whole plot. Like, you can be able to watch 2 or 3 of their trailers and you'll know, oh, okay, this is going to be a funny part. This is what's going to happen from here.
Yep.
So they actually did a decent, compared to previous movies in the past, they actually did a decent job of not spoiling the film before it even came out for the rest of the world. But it wasn't until like maybe about a week and a half after it officially hit the States that, clickbait started popping up, all the memes started popping up. But I think what was interesting was the fact of like, out of the 3 Spider-Men, the only one that wasn't confirmed was Tobey Maguire. And so here we are seeing Tobey popping out from the screen, and it's just like one of those moments where here I am, 35. I'm like,
all right. So I got a better question. Who is your favorite Spider-Man in the live action movie?
Garfield.
Maguire.
I liked Andrew Garfield as well, because I felt like he had more of a smart ass mouth. You know what I mean? Like the fact that he was just like like the one part where he's like, "Oh no, not little knives. That's my weakness." You know what I mean? Like, and the way that the only thing that I had a problem with was he definitely looked 25 playing a high schooler. You know what I mean? So that was the only problem that I had with it. Like have him go to like whatever college that he wanted to go to and have him, you know what I mean? Kind of how they did Toby Maguire, where he was a high schooler. They knew that they couldn't really get away with him being a high schooler for too long. So they were like, oh, he got his powers in high school. And now we're going to fast forward to where he's now graduating from high school.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
there are a lot of really cool stories from him in college, like a lot of them. So I mean, throw him in college, make it work. Andrew Garfield is Tom Holland has a lot of emotional weight. I love watching Tom Holland. I think he's great. Andrew Garfield has the most for me. When the three of them were on screen together, Andrew Garfield was the one who I found most interesting. And Tobey Maguire is just like a human being made out of cardboard. Sorry. So
I will say he definitely wasn't at like 100% compared to the trilogy, which I don't even remember the last film I even seen Maguire in, to be perfectly honest. But I think out of the group, we are dealing with like a more adult Peter Parker, who apparently still has injuries, and he's still trying. Like, you know how when we get to that point of like getting closer to 30, and we're realizing, oh, my knees are popping, or I can't I can't twist or turn as much as I used to. But I think some of that was rubbing off into No Way Home, where you're seeing the fact of like, yeah, man, I still got this injury from like several years back or whatever, and it's still kind of limiting what I can do. Like that whole popping scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was one of those where it's just like, so even though he has like this, what was the word I'm looking for?
terrible acting.
Say what?
Terrible acting.
No. Okay, so you know how like Spider-Man technically has like on top of the super strength and agility, he also has a bit of regenerative healing factor to the fact. So we're looking at two different Spider-Man who are just like, yeah, I'm not healing as fast as I used to because I'm getting older, and you're seeing that. And I thought that was an interesting kind of like realism take. But Maguire, I feel like, is very much the Jack Kirby era, Romita Senior era of popping my 30s. But did you drop and lock it? That's the question. But I feel like Maguire is like that early 60s, 70s era of Spider-Man, and that was the Spider-Man that I was introduced. So that's why I kind of resonated with that. I feel like Garfield is very much the Todd McFarlane era of Spider-Man. And I definitely get why a lot of people get that, because he was super smart ass in the McFarlane era, getting into like the 90s, and definitely what we see in the animated version. And then I feel like Tom Holland is like ultimate era of Spider-Man, going to where we are now ish.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah. So I just think that a lot of times when it comes to that, they like there's just so many different versions of there you go, Brian. So I think there's so many versions of like the different characteristics that Spider-Man possesses. So like there's sometimes even in the comic books where he almost seems like needy to have a friend, which I always think, to be honest with you, and some people don't agree with me on this, I think Spider-Man is more lonely, it has a lonelier path than Batman does, because Batman has like all these people around him, and like there's only a few people that can really know about Peter, and I think that he has more guilt that goes along with him, because it's more realistic. Because as somebody with powers to stop what was going on, he essentially feels bad because of what happened to Uncle Ben. versus I think I think Bruce Wayne just needs a hug, bro. And like I think that he just like if somebody was like, how were you going to stop an armed mugger at the age of 9 or 10?
Yeah.
And like as far as that's concerned, that would be it. But I just think that there's a lot more that he has to deal with. And plus, Peter Parker has to deal with like real life shit. Like he has to pay rent. He has to, you know what I mean? Like Batman has
That's his number one enemy, rent.
exactly rent and keeping a
Batman is,
job.
like, completely removed from any real life anything.
Yeah, like so that's the thing that I think is crazy is because of the fact that like Peter's got real life problems. Like, hey, I need to come back here and I need to make this money so that I can pay rent or that I can eat or that I can do all this other stuff. And I like what I liked in Amazing Spider-Man 2 was the fact that he was sick in that one. You know what I mean? He was like he was like having to buy like Sudafed and he was like stopping a robber at the same time. He's like, I'm really sorry. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's just stuff like that I think is it, which makes him more relatable than a lot of other characters.
Did you guys ever read Spider-Man Blue?
What?
Did you ever read Spider-Man Blue?
I didn't read it.
So the whole point of Spider-Man Blue is basically Pete is, I think he's already married to MJ, and apparently in the attic he has like a box full of audio recordings of him talking on the day of Gwen Stacy's death. Like every year after she has died, he is like doing an audio recording, basically expressing his guilt and so on and so forth. And I feel like Andrew Garfield's character kind of exemplified that kind of era of Spider-Man Blue, because you see that in his face whenever it gets to the topic of Gwen Stacy, or if he has someone back at home, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So you see that, and I feel like the scene where he saves MJ,
oh man,
at the end, I feel like that was his second wind,
his redemption and such.
Yeah.
So to speak.
And that was the best part of the movie for me. That was the single best part of the movie. Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2 made me like bawl, like literally an adult man just crying. And that exemplified who Spider-Man is, in my opinion, because it's like he's always losing someone. Always. Every single time he does anything wrong, it's like, oh yeah, you suffered. The world suffers. Like life is worse because you made the worst decision. Like he let somebody get away, Uncle Ben. He like isn't fast enough, Gwen Stacy. In the comics, so many villains exist because he didn't go above and beyond, right? So like Hobgoblin.
It just like there's immediate consequences to whatever happens with him in Spider-Man for that one. And it's like, okay, well, man, I didn't do this, so there's always consequences. And that really sucks when it comes to that. But it also when you look at I liked Andrew Garfield's version of Spider-Man. I just think that Electro and they took too many like risky things that didn't pay off in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And that's what kind of messed them up as far as that's concerned, because at the time I think that everybody was kind of doing more realistic stuff, and the way that they had Jamie Foxx and whoever else was the Green Goblin, I forget his name, like yeah, they just took too many risks with it, and that was the part that really stunk, because I really thought of him as like, and of course Tobey Maguire had some points where he showed like, especially in Spider-Man 2 where how life was really beating him down, but like Andrew Garfield, I felt like the real pain that had to go with it. But I think they were just trying to do too much with too little at the same time.
I felt like they were throwing the kitchen sink with Amazing Spider-Man 2 because they were trying to allude.
Not No Way Home.
Say what?
But not No Way Home.
No Way Home was more fan service, man. I think that's the one thing that I think it is. Go ahead,
So
John.
with Amazing Spider-Man 2, the reason that I feel like they really threw the kitchen sink at it was because they were trying to set up Sinister Six. They were trying to set up the next Green Goblin. They were trying to set up Rhino and Electro.
Mhm.
And it was just one of those things where I felt like they were trying to create too many villains within one movie, and that really also backfired with the third Spider-Man film because not only did you have to deal with Venom and you had to deal with Harry Osborn, Green Goblin, but you also had to deal with Sandman, and then also Peter was his own villain himself. So it was just like, how many villains can we put in Amazing Spider-Man 2? Well, let's see. We've got Secret Six, so carry the one. And it was just one of those moments. And I feel like that was, I definitely feel like that was something that really kind of put it in its halt.
Can we circle back to what else sucks about No Way Home? Because there's a lot more about it that sucks. There's one thing about the
They killed Marissa Tomei. That sucked.
No, that was good. That was good. That was great. It was great. One thing about the MCU that really bothers me, and when Robert Downey Jr. did it, for some reason it felt a little more natural, but now like every single character is doing it, it's too much. So it's the like super science, right? So for whatever reason, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is like, yeah, I can just science the crap out of this. We'll fix it. Just science it. And then he takes 5 dudes that all have various degrees of mental and physical like disfiguration, mental like illness, anxieties, whatever, takes them into his actual living space, his apartment, where he's living with his, family and whatever. And then in a span of like 2 hours, has completely cured Doc Ock. Right? We're just going to throw all this info into this fabricator, and then that's done. And then he was just going to cure all of them. And then the rest of them are like, yeah, let's go to this high school science lab, and just in a span of another 2 hours, we're going to fix all these supervillains. The only one that I give any credence to whatsoever is the Lizard, because he'd already done it. And I will give some leeway toward Green Goblin because he could have been working on that for years. I don't know. But the other one, what the crap?
So I will say the only reason that any of these fixers, as far as just the whole let's science the crap out of this, I don't think it was possible without the Stark technology that Peter was given.
It's just weak. It's weak storytelling.
We can look at it. We can look at it as weak storytelling all we want, but unfortunately, this is what we're given, and we're just going to have to chomp the bit and admit the fact that this is on film.
That is the reverse. That is the reverse of how it works. I get to say it sucks because I'm a fan.
Yeah, so I agree. There's no way.
Do you say that it sucks because you're a fan, or are you saying that it sucks because it's easier to take the road of pessimism?
No.
So I agree with.
I
agree with Brian. So I think that it's really tough to take 8 different movies, and with different studios, actors, directors, and motivations behind everything, and just say, okay, we're going to try to make this work. Now, I think a lot of times, especially in the fact that they saw that everybody was doing so well with the cameos, that okay, well, more cameos mean more money, and that's what they're looking at. But it's not as strong when you have that. And I think like they're going to get to a point where they're going to have to go back to singular superheroes where you may have someone help. But I think the fact that we got so spoiled with multiple characters in different movies, like essentially when Captain America Civil War came out, when when they started having team ups, they think, okay, that's what people like, but it was just a solid story. And I think they pick and choose what they want to do in that situation.
Agreed. Solid story first. Solid story
But this,
first. You do whatever you want character wise when the story works. This story didn't.
yes, I do agree. They are trying to put it all back together, which is why I'm going back to what I was stating earlier about Phase 4, is that these individual films that are going on right now, it's like the first couple of Marvel films. They're trying to find their footing. They're trying to see what formula is working and what isn't.
Because they don't want to pay. They don't want to pay anybody anymore. They're like, Robert Downey Jr. bent us over. We do not want to take that anymore. So
yeah. Well, and it also points into the context of some of these characters, they're actually aging. They're getting older because so much time has passed since the beginning of this entire Avengers initiative happening. So we're dealing with like at least somewhere between 11 to 15 years within the MCU universe that this is happening. People are getting older and some of them are dying or if not already dead. So we've got to find the next heroes. Who are going to be the next heroes? And that's where we get into the conversations of, well, it's looking like we're getting set up for Young Avengers. It looks like we're getting set up for possibility of Midnight Suns. We're getting set up for the possibility of a couple of different things. So it looks like, yeah, there are maybe another big baddie in the loom, and we got to create these small little teams and get them to come together. But I do agree that they are, I feel like, not going back to the individual character themselves and focusing on this character and making this character seem as plausible and realistic enough that this person has their footing within the MCU.
Yeah.
Do you think that MCU, since the Avengers, because Kevin Feige said that there's not going to be any other Avengers movies, do you think that the MCU is on the downslope?
It has taken a bit of a dip because, I mean, after the part 1 and 2 of Infinity War, it's like, where do you go after that? Because so much happened. So much happened.
Keep
And
it
so
together.
I do feel like
You're gonna be here, Brian. I'm gonna will it so.
but it definitely has taken a bit of a dive as far as just like with the actual movies themselves. I definitely feel like it's taken a dive, but I do feel like the TV shows have kept it stabilized. As far as just the whole hour-long episodical thing, you can actually elaborate on things more with those than you could with an actual movie. It sounds stupid when I say it, but I feel like that's what's going on right here.
Yeah,
Because I will agree, I don't feel like with 3 spider minds together that you could science your way out of everything. But unfortunately, this happened within 5 minutes worth of screen time. But it would have been different. It would have been different if this went on for like 2 episodes that are an hour apiece.
Sure. But I want you to understand what you just said is, unfortunately, I have to deal with what the director, writer, whatever gave me. What you said wasn't, I really liked it. It was inspiring. It made me.
Because I take a realistic approach to all of this. I don't take the optimist. I don't take the pessimist. I take the realistic approach to this.
But your realistic approach, we're talking about whether or not you enjoyed a movie, and you're like,
realism. The realistic fact is that on a personal opinion, did I enjoy the film? Yeah, I did enjoy it for what it was.
But and here's the thing. I think that when it comes to these movies, like we have to realize that like they're fixing a whole lot of stuff in the same thing. It's kind of like X-Men Days of Future Past, where they had to fix a whole lot of stuff and then they had to try to get to it. So you had to take a whole lot of leaps to be able to get to where you were from that point. But also it's about trying to get everything kind of righting the ship as far as that's concerned. So true. I get that hey, it's not going to be concise, because it's different than, say, for instance, if you have like one of the Disney Plus shows where you have, essentially 8 hours or so to be able to fix a show or to fix any kind of wrongdoings in here. You're just given 2.5, maybe 3 hours nowadays to be able to go ahead and tell a story and still have it be rich in content. Because, and I think about this as well, now that you think about it, there's a whole lot of people who well, considering what we used to like when it was like in the early 2000s and the 90s, like those movies were trash, but we loved them because we just cut off our brains as far as that's concerned. So now the thing is, with these new movies, they challenge us to think, but in the same instance, that's a double-edged sword. So then after that, you're like, okay, now that I'm thinking, this wouldn't work like the same way that it would work in the movies or in real life.
Yeah, which is why when I initially stated at the very beginning, we have to keep in mind with the DCEU and the MCU, these are their own universes.
Mhm.
Granted, yes, they're drawing from source materials, but we also have to keep in mind that these are their own entities, if you will, and we have to work within these parameters that we're watching.
Absolutely. So,
Well, one thing I want to circle back to. You said they're not going to make another Avengers movie. That is a crock of shit. We all know that's a crock of shit.
they said that there won't be any other Avengers movies. They said they never said that there weren't going to be any more team ups, but there
Yeah.
won't be the Avengers as we know it.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe
and
that's what they meant.
that's the part where I want to split hairs, because it's just like you've already shown what 3-4 members of Young Avengers already.
Mhm.
So technically, it's not Avengers, but it is Young Avengers.
Yeah, you got Patriot. You got a lot of them. You got Patriot. You got Hawkeye. You got what's her name? America Chavez already. You've got God. There's one in every project now.
Stature,
Huh?
Cassie Lang.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. You've got both of Wanda's kids.
Mm-hmm.
There really is just one in every single project.
Or more.
And
So.
let's talk about that real quick, Travis. Good point. It's too much. It's just too much across the board. So like they used to have, here's a Captain America movie, here's a Thor movie. Like, why don't you take a breath and then come back and enjoy another movie? Now it's like, hey, guess what? Guess what's coming out tomorrow? It's Moon Knight. Guess what's coming out after that? 3 days later. It's just like it's so much. It's hard to process anymore. This conversation has really got deeper into the problems with the MCU from my point of view. So I'm sorry, I am a hater. I've become a hater. I recognize it.
No, here's what I think it is, man. I think that like Marvel has asked us to think, and they're like, you're thinking too much. Don't think that much on it, Jeremy. We just want you to think about just this part of the story. And you're like, no, I want to think about this. So that's where I think the difference is. I think honestly, the problem that they're running into is the fact that when they did Endgame and when they did Endgame, they didn't have Disney Plus, so they could just focus on the movies and telling the story just in that movie. But now that they have Disney Plus, they feel like they have to go ahead and intermingle everything and blend everything together. And so that's where, okay, well, this happened in this story and this happened in that story. So if you haven't watched this, go get Disney Plus so that we can be able to talk about it from there.
What's your favorite Disney Plus one?
My favorite Disney Plus series would have to be probably Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Probably. I mean, they're all really like Scarlet or WandaVision took too long to really get started. You know what I mean?
You could have made 2 episodes off that for me.
Yeah. Let's see.
The first 2.
Yeah. Where there, I was just like, okay, what's going? So, and then, well, no, I think Loki would probably be my favorite. Now that I think about it, Loki was really good as well. So like they're all really close in there, but it's just you just have a lot of stuff that goes on from there.
Tom, what about you?
I'm going to get crap for this, but I actually enjoyed Hawkeye more than I should because it's very much a tale of you don't need to meet your heroes because you're going to get let down. And that's what happened within the first episode. But at the same time, it also kind of had like a diehard element in the sense of he's just trying to get home to his kids for Christmas. But let's blow up some bad guys on the way, sort of thing. So,
So
but I
WandaVision
actually,
was go ahead.
but I think my runner-up is actually going to be WandaVision. It was just one of those where, like, I had a feeling that they were going to take it either in the element of like House of M,
Yeah.
or if they were going to take it towards the element of the Vision comic that Tom King wrote. And I feel like they kind of picked a little bit here and a little bit there because now Monica Rambeau has made her appearance and she has been given powers. So this exists, if you want to call it, in a House of M moment. And then on the other hand, we do have the whole Tom King Vision thing with him living in this perfect family setting, and then it all starts unraveling apart. So I don't know, but I definitely enjoyed it because it was definitely different than Falcon and Winter Soldier, where it was very grounded, and everyone is trying to race for the mantle of who's going to be the next Captain America. And then Loki is just one of those where if you really like a villain becoming an anti-hero, then here you go. But at the same time, we can also make the argument that they put in way too many Lokis.
No.
I mean, there was only like
too many Lokis.
I mean, there was the one episode that they had like all the Lokis.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like every other one, it was like Sylvie and Loki Prime. That's what I'm calling him, Loki Prime.
I think that is a really good example of what I was talking about before, where throughout that story, it wasn't just like super cameo heavy. It was a story that wrote on its own. And so when you did get those kind of like, oh yeah, look, it's all these other Lokis. You like President Loki from the comics? Here you go. Like that was very, it was fan service in a way that actually helped the story. Except for Sif. Take Sif out of there. I'm sick of Sif. Every time they need a cameo from Thor, it's just like, here's Sif. Take her.
Hey, Sif's got to work, man. Sif's got to work. She needs something else to do. So
Valkyrie's taking all the credit, so Sif has to pull up her own weight.
Absolutely, she's got to do something. So,
but I do think it was funny how I think it was like the first episode when Loki was trying to escape the whole area, and he gets into that cubicle area, and you got all these Infinity Stones just kind of laying about the place, and it's just like, oh yeah, these are just paperweights. It's just like,
yeah. So what about you, Jeremy? What's your favorite Disney Plus show?
Oh man, there are so many of them. I can't really keep them all straight. I want to say Loki, but I've had good experiences with a lot of them. There's none that I've just been like, that was real trash. I don't think I liked Hawkeye that much. Hawkeye had a couple of just like, why are they doing this kind of things? But yeah, I think they're doing a pretty good job with Disney Plus. I do think that mentally I have to shift to where it's not like, here's a show, here's a show, here's a show. I think mentally I have to shift to, it's the Disney show, or not Disney, it's the MCU show on Disney Plus, comes out every week. So I hated not Infinity. I hated What If until I got to the Doctor Strange episode, and then I started to understand what they were doing a little better, and then I really liked it.
Yeah, that's the only one I haven't seen yet. Is What If.
What about
I don't like The Mandalorian. I liked the first season. Second season, I didn't like. Boba Fett, I'm not even going to try.
Boba Fett is like the Mandalorian season 2.5.
Yeah.
It is. Like at some point, it was like it felt like they were like, okay, so let's look at Boba Fett. Oh, he's not that interesting right now. Okay, let's just go ahead and bring the Mandalorian back.
So I actually had a very
I
in-depth
agree, Travis.
conversation about Boba Fett, and because aside from his 10 minutes of fame within between episodes 5 and 6, apparently in the book legacy storyline, he actually does become like a really successful businessman. So here we go. Uh, so here we go, and that's where it was kind of like heading towards. It was the fact of he was becoming this successful businessman, and it was alluding that it was going to have like this kind of Godfather-ish kind of thing of him rebuilding his own empire sort of situation. But it, for some reason, it did not go that route. Like it was aiming, and then the bullet just kind of missed the
Mhm.
target by that much. And so they were just like, how do we save this? Oh, let's bring in Mando. So
It sounded like you know how they were probably filming and they're like, hey, this Mandalorian is really catching on. So let's go ahead and make this happen. Hey, they really
now,
like Luke Skywalker in this one. Let's go ahead and put him in there too.
now I
Really
really
cool to see
enjoy
him.
the moments. I really enjoy the moments that they brought in Cad Bane and the Wookiee.
Mm-hmm.
I thought those were really interesting choices to bring them in. Um, but yeah, it was definitely Mando 2.5.
You know, I think what you were saying about him being a successful businessman, I think you got to stop and rethink what you're doing if you're taking this like super badass, mysterious warrior, and it's like, oh yeah, now he's a businessman. Watch him put
So
on a suit. Watch him go to work.
so here's where it goes wrong. And the only reason I'm saying this is because the person that I had the conversation with was actually Jeremy Thornton.
Jay?
So because Jay Thornton,
Yeah.
yeah, because apparently he is very much a self-proclaimed Boba Fett connoisseur, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so his whole thing was is that while yes, he is this bounty hunter, sort of character, but at some point he was just like, I cannot keep doing this for the rest of my life. What do I got to do? So that's when the whole businessman becoming basically this kind of Godfather character of Mos Eisley, or was it Mos Espa? It was one of those two. But that was his next business route. I mean, it's not saying that he didn't shoot, someone during the process, but the point being is that he was just one of those characters that was just like, I can continue on doing this, but at some point, either I'm going to kill myself or someone's going to kill me. So let me get smart and collect my shekels while I still have the chance.
Gets his insurance license, sets up a little
401k,
yeah, gets a
an
remote
AARP.
and starts recruiting under him. I don't
He
know.
has
I have no interest in that whatsoever. I'm not a Star Wars man. I can't do it. I'm not a Star Trek guy. I'm not a Star Wars man. I didn't like Battlestar Galactica. I just can't. I don't know. It's just not. I just can't do it. Mando was cool because it was like it
a
was it
Western.
was yeah, it was a western. So it's like they did something that wasn't just like here's space. Oh, I liked it. Hey, who's Cad Bane? What is that about? I don't know what Cad Bane is.
Wyatt, do you want to answer this one?
Isn't he the blue guy
Yes.
that was so he's the blue guy that was a like an assassin slash hitman, and
Yeah.
so essentially if you had to pretty much follow the Clone Wars to really be able to understand who he was. So he was
Mhm.
a thorn in the side of uh, uh, Obi-Wan and also Luke. So he would always mess with them, kind of kill off people, so he would always be trying to do things. And then they also brought him back for uh the Bad Batch. So he was also in there. So he's essentially just a just an assassin, hitman.
Yeah.
I think Wyatt,
They-
you just summed up Star Wars for me in a nutshell. Wasn't he the blue guy?
Yeah, I was trying to make sure. The blue guy.
So what's interesting is that they actually modeled Cat Bane as the Star Wars version of I forgot the name of the actor, but he's in The Good, the Bad, the Ugly.
Eastwood.
Not Eastwood's character, but the other guy who was also.
Nah, it's all right.
You guys are really just throwing me on Star Wars right now.
No, man. So Star Wars. So here's the thing. I really like the fact that the Mandalorian talked about stuff that wasn't related to the Skywalkers, because essentially one family messed up the whole galaxy because of the fact that he didn't feel like he was loved. So then after that he left his kids, and then after that they started wars and all the rest of it. So that's what
he killed first. Don't leave that out.
Yeah, he killed a lot of people, killed a lot of kids. So I mean, he definitely had a dark period. But as far as that's concerned, man, like I like the fact that they talk about how the world is different than, now that those people aren't really involved in the situation.
I didn't like Battlestar Galactica, Brian. I heard the name Adam or Adama, and I was like, nope, they're gonna land on Earth, and I just knew it. First episode had no interest in it. I watched the whole thing anyway, though.
So, I think the only thing that I really kind of take away from the entire Star Wars whatever, and I think some of this was talked about in Force Awakens, is that when you've got a totalitarian regime, regardless of how well you try to destroy this thing, there's still going to be remnants of it that are happening in the background to create the next big bad. And then once you try to kill that off, there's still remnants of it, and it's going to create an even big badder. So I feel like that was just kind of like the revolving door to, I guess, things that kind of happen in current events. When you look at, say, going back to World War I with the German Empire, I mean, yeah, we took it down, but then it became the Nazis, and we took that down, and now you had Soviet Germans who were just as bad. So,
yeah, man. So with me, I felt like they just didn't know, like they lost, so they should just be able to take the L and just go ahead and be about their way. You know what I mean? Yeah. As far as that's concerned, we tried to blow up planets. That didn't work out for us. So, and hey, they blew up the Death Star not once but twice. And then after that,
they call it suns.
Yeah, and the Sun Killer or whatever it was. Hey, after that blows up, I'd be like, listen, if I was an engineer, I'd be like, bro, I don't have anything else. Like, I went from planets to blowing up suns.
I'm gonna start making three-legged stools.
Yeah, I don't know what else you want me to do. So, so that's it, man. Like, and then it's a really fun adventure. I definitely, one of these times, we're just gonna have to talk about the Star Wars movies.
Count me out.
Yeah, man, it is horrible. Like, so the newer ones, I was just like, okay, like especially like the first one, The Force Unleashed. I think it was it that the newest one out of the bunch?
Force Awakens.
Force Awakens, yeah. So, The Force Unleashed was a game. So, yes. So The Force Awakens, I was really excited about. I was like, okay, let's go. It's something that's not to do with the Skywalkers, and it'll be something fun that we can be able to have. And then they had a Black Jedi. I was all for it.
Was that the one with Riz Ahmed?
With who?
Riz Ahmed, where it was about. Wait, hold on. No. I'm thinking about the wrong one. The one where it's like blowing up the Death Star or blowing
Oh,
up Alderaan.
oh no, that's Rogue
Rogue
Okay.
One.
Yeah, Rogue One. So the one that I'm talking about, they just didn't have anybody there.
Episode
Yeah, 7. Yeah. So I was just like, I was excited about it. I was like, Black Jedi, he got a lightsaber, he's fighting somebody, let's go. And then they just went totally left.
I think there's something that tangentially connects the Spider-Man conversation that we're having and the Force saga conversation here with Star Wars. I think they get to a point where I don't know if this is Disney or maybe it's just everyone or just storytellers in general. I think they get to this point where they're like, well, they like this, right? They like Spider-Man. Spider-Man's a very well-recognized character. They'll just love whatever. Put a couple of Spider-Man in it. And like Into the Spider-Verse, had a bunch of Spider-Man. But I loved it because it was a good story. And so I know we're all going to disagree about how bad No Way Home is. I mean, like I say it's really bad. You guys say it's just terrible, but everybody hates it.
I don't think it's terrible, man. I think it's just
No, I
way did I ever say that.
It's just fan service. It's just heavy on fan service. But I also thought that Endgame was horrible because of that same thing.
Okay, I'll give that to you. The Star Wars suffers from the same thing. Instead of crafting a story that's just really effing good, they're like, let's throw a Skywalker in it. You know?
So let me interject right here. That's kind of apples and oranges to a degree. It's a very finite degree, but it is a degree that is apples and oranges. And the only reason I'm saying that is because it was originally alluded that they were trying to follow a plot line within the books. So they were trying to create a certain legacy novel into canon. And the problem is that at some point they dropped the ball, they changed up characters, and this is where it ended up falling short. And they really did John Boyega dirty.
Oh, yeah. My guy was like, he was amped to take over.
I was rooting so bad for him to be like, not Rey, him to be the next Jedi. And then what happens? He ends up getting his back sliced open and ends up incapacitated for half of episode 8. So it was just like, there was no point for any of this. But yet everyone keeps talking about how episode 8 was like the best of that trilogy, and
I beg to differ strongly.
Yeah. The only good thing was Luke force projecting himself at the very end. That was the only cool thing that I found about that film.
Wasn't Palpatine dead?
Yes, it's so crazy, bro. Like it. It's crazy. The Force kept him alive, apparently, some kind of way. And then it's crazy.
So I think the only reason that they still kept him alive is because in the original, in the prequel trilogy, his whole thing about turning Anakin to the dark side is because he found a way to bring people back from the dead. That was his hook, line, and sinker, but he never taught that to Anakin whatsoever, even when he was Darth Vader. Never taught him that. That was his supposed trump card. And I feel like they used that plot point. So unless you had watched those, you wouldn't have known. So they used that tiny little plot point, and they're just like, wait a second. He said this in the movies. We're going to use that to our advantage. And we're going to bring back this character. Because the entire time we were thinking, oh, well, this is this Darth Snoke character who we thought was a giant, who was actually a hologram projection of himself. And then we see him and he gets sliced in half like Darth Maul. So, yeah, the whole thing was just kind of trying
Thank
to read
you,
all
Danielle. Thank you.
I agree with that. That's what I'm over here saying. I don't want a story about them. I want good stories.
So essentially, Star Wars was like, hey, Skywalkers, they just need to stop having kids. They need to stop having sex because apparently they do nothing well. All right.
Well, Luke never had any kids, as far as
Well,
I know.
well, his sister did, and then you saw how that turned out for dad and uncle as well.
In the movies, yes. In the books, no.
I get you, but I'm going off. I'm going straight off of movies because that one was just like, okay, come on,
Yeah.
and so I get it. But I think that Spider-Man was a lot of fan service. Yeah, Brian. I'm sorry. I'm trying to bring it back, man. I'm trying to bring it back. Spider-Man was a lot of fan service, but it didn't have a strong storyline as far as that's concerned. But that's because I felt like they had to push a lot of stuff in a little bit, not a little bit of time, but just enough time. It was a 3-hour movie almost. So like they're trying to put a lot of stuff in there, and they're trying to make a lot of things pay off. And then I think with Disney nowadays, they're trying to see what they're throwing noodles at the wall and seeing what sticks. So they're trying to see if they can get another movie out of Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire or or anything like that.
Toby's
God knows.
done. Let
I feel
Toby
like that's probably more
one.
And then they tried to, and then they were like, I think they looked at how well the second Venom movie was, and they were like, okay, I think Tom Hardy would have had a bigger part if his movie didn't suck as much as it did.
Why didn't you put it all? You
Listen.
could have brought Topher Grace back just to
Nah.
give him the suit or something else. Like,
Nah.
but Tom Hardy, why is he even in it?
Tom Hardy is a way better Venom than, because like that Venom was like, and we're going into it, but that Venom, like in Spider-Man 3, I didn't like Spider-Man 3 at all. One of the reasons was that exactly. I hated that. That was like he had no rhythm, he had nothing, and I'm so disturbed by that. So
I think the only reason why the Tom Hardy Venom even exists in the first place is that someone from Marvel saw the words "lethal protector" on a comic and said, "Ooh, this would be great because they've been talking about him as an anti-hero lately. This will work so much." And so they created an entire movie franchise out of it.
No, I think they did it because of the fact that, like, I blame Ryan Reynolds. Because they were like, we can make a rated R movie and everybody loves Spider-Man, so everybody's gonna love Venom.
You mean Deadpool?
No, so that's what I'm saying. So everybody loved Deadpool, and it was a rated R movie. So then they're like, everybody loves Spider-Man, so ergo, everybody's gonna love Venom because of the fact that Venom is like a darker Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest drawback was you're trying to make a Carnage movie and you made it PG-13.
Exactly. So
no bueno.
Can we all agree that sucked? Can we at least end on one positive note, which is Carnage sucked? That was
yeah. But Woody Harrelson is doing
my time back. Give me my money back. Come on.
Woody Harrelson was nice. I was happy to see him.
Yeah.
I mean, not in that particular role, but I'm just happy to see that he's alive. Because it's been a long road for him since White Man Can't Jump.
He's had a good career.
Man, this guy is all about some silk.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, he just like every other comment I keep seeing just has something to do with silk. I'm like, this guy was really like those comics.
So the way I understand Silk, this is tangentially also Spider-Man. Cindy Moon got bit by the same spider that Peter Parker got bit by, and then just didn't do anything for like 20 years, and then came back and just wants to bone Spider-Man 24/7. That's how I understand Silk. So maybe I'm missing something.
So
I'd watch that movie.
So after the events of Superior Spider-Man, there was a whole situation that somehow Peter got drawn into. The only reason I know this is because I apparently have this issue. And it just happens to be the first appearance of Silk. But apparently Cindy Moon had been kept in captivity or something, or locked up or whatever. And so when Pete was trying to, what he thought was someone in distress, it ends up actually being her.
Me too.
And that's when they keep bringing the character Silk in, which also caused issues yet again between Pete and MJ. So Pete and his women, man, I mean, he just can't get it together.
Well, he got it together for Cindy.
Let's talk about this just a little bit. I'd love to see Marvel explore more of the Spider-Verse with Silk, Spider-Gwen, Miles Morales, etc. Everyone else would too, I think, right? Does anybody disagree with that?
Yeah.
I've heard talks that they're trying to bring in what's her face, the blind psychic lady.
Oh, Madam Web.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's
I've heard that.
I want to call her Dakota Fanning, which is a joke.
Oh, it's Dakota Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard talks about them bringing it in, which, I mean, I'm not saying that you couldn't dye her hair and put some prosthetics on her to make her look older, but at the same time, why not just hire?
Well, I think they're making her younger too, because they're gonna, So I think, and plus they've got that new Into the Spider-Verse movie coming out. I think either at the end of this year or summer of next year. So they've got a lot of stuff that's going to really be able to kind of help out. I think they're just kind of doing a money grab as far as that's concerned, and I think that's also because there's too many cooks in the kitchen. You know what I mean? So they're like, hey, we want to see what's going to happen or how people respond to that, or to this person or to this character. Because I did like Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, and I would love to see him, try to have a redemption story going back through the world in his world.
I'm calling it now. Jaden Smith is going to be Miles Morales. Will Smith has openly bragged about it. So, calling it now.
He's openly bragged about a bunch of things, but it doesn't make it true.
I will take a bet. Anybody want to bet me?
I bet Willow Smith is going to be Miles Morales.
Nah.
I'm going to give myself pretty good odds that I'm right and you're not there.
So, all right. So, last question of the night, because I know we got to start wrapping it up here. What is you guys' favorite Spider-Man movie?
Spider-Verse, hands down.
If we're talking about animated, definitely Spider-Verse. If we're talking live action, it's actually going to be Spider-Man 2. And I think that's just because I really like the character Doc Ock, and Alfred Molina did a fantastic job playing unhinged Sam Raimi Doc Ock.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with Spider-Verse just because it had a lot more thickness to it when it came to the plot, and I love a good thick plot.
Thank you.
Now, is this thick with CK, 2Cs, or a Q?
You never use the Q. The Q is out of there. But 2 C's and a K, you can definitely go. Or maybe, and you can even just skip the K, man. Just go ahead and go thick.
Wait. If I'm wrong, who gets Final Fantasy Fantastic 449? We need to clarify this bet before you start giving away Fantastic 449s. Guys, it was great to talk to you, even though you're both objectively wrong about Spider-Man and that movie being good. But that's okay. We can all be friends no matter what.
That's why I mess with you, Danielle. See, there we go. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, best one ever.
Agreed. It had so much heart. I know that's not what we're talking about. I know everyone's trying to go. I watch that movie all the time. I have seen that movie literally like 100 times because my daughter got into the stage where she wanted to see it every day. Every single time I watch it, there's something new special I pick up about it. It's amazing.
I will say it's visually the best out of all of them. Just the vibrant colors, even the illusions of like little things from the comics, like the little squiggly lines for the spider sense. They brought that in instead of like we're just going to distort the background or give them goosebumps. I thought that was really cool that they brought that in.
Yeah. Well, so what I wanted to do at the very end, because you guys have your own things that you have in the, you're not just Blerd Syndicate members. You guys don't just talk about those things. So I want to give you guys a second to, plug what you got.
Tom, you go first.
Crap.
It's in your name title, man.
It is. So in my little name title at the very bottom,
there you go.
it's working reverse. Is my handle on almost everything as far as social media is concerned. So you can follow me there. All you have to type in is @TPriceArtworks, either in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also Patreon.
Yeah.
So you can follow me in those 4 places. I have a table at the Huntsville Comic Expo next to
the other guy.
There we go. I'm directionally challenged. I have a table next to this guy over here, but I'm also going to be seeing and stopping by this guy's table as well. If not all 3 days, then definitely one day out of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will hopefully have my first ever sketchbook, which has been edited by this guy.
Hey.
Right here. And it will be physical copies first, and then hopefully later we'll get into digital PDF copies as well for people who live out of state and also out of country. Let's see what else do I have going on. Also have a table at Free Comic Book Day at Haven Comics. And there is also a couple other things in the pipe works, but I can't talk about them yet. So.
All right. Sweet. Jeremy.
I'm a writer and an artist. I am not on social media in that way a lot because it drives me insane. Can I play my video? That way I can write any experience from this. And I'm a realtor in my day job, and that lets me do cool things that I love.
Cool. Well,
Travis, if you don't know Tom, I'll link you guys up, and you guys can talk about that more after.
He's following me on social media. So to answer that question real quick, because he is about one of, as of right now, 14 people who have asked me within the last 2 weeks.
Dope.
Yeah. So the answer is technically yes, I will be opening up commissions for that, but I'm waiting until next month, closer towards the expo. I've got just too much on my plate right now, and the last thing I want to do is to open up that and then be super overwhelmed. So I'm trying to get several ducks in a row done first, and when I get that out of the way, I will be announcing that. As of right now, Patreon members will actually have the first crack as far as signing up for that first. So they will be the first ones to know about that. And then everyone else on social media will know about that within a couple days later.
Cool. He does amazing work. So definitely check him out. And so also, with the Blerd Syndicate, we're actually going to be at the expo as well in Huntsville. And so that's going to be there April 22nd through the 24th. We're going to have giveaways. We're going to have gift cards. We're going to have water bottles and all types of stuff as far as that's concerned. We also have a wonderful website. So the website is theblerdsyndicate.com. So you can do that. And if you actually go there, we have a promo code for you, which is actually with the BS, all caps, all together. And so then you can be able to save 20% off of your order. We have really cool shirts, do stuff like this. We also have stuff where, wrestler Razor Ramon, Scott Hall passed away, so we have some shirts there for us. So we got a lot of crazy things, a lot of great things as far as that's concerned. So finally, the last thing I like to say is, like, we want you to be like the Hulk. We want you to go ahead, smash that follow on like button, and we're going to be like Morgan Stark. We're going to love your 3000. So until next time, y'all stay nerdy. All right.